Hi, welcome back. I'm Doug Andrew. In this particular episode, you're going to understand how to answer questions of clients, prospects, when they ask, what are the linking methods? What does that mean used with indexed universal life? I have been told I should diversify. So I shouldn't put all my eggs in one basket. So how can I diversify using this strategy or this product? Well, as I've said in previous episodes, I believe in diversifying in superior vehicles and products, not diversifying in inferior ones. And so you do that by using different linking methods and different indices within your indexed universal life policy or policies if you have several. So as I've said previously, I own several, some on me, some on my wife, some on my kids, some with this company, this company, this company. But within each company with a specific product, I diversify sometimes into 5 different indices. So pay attention on how you do this, and it would behoove you to follow along with me with your copy of the Laser Fund. Now, I'm going to be specifically referencing Chapter 6. It's titled The Power of Indexing, and it starts on page 65. And the very first few pages I've already sort of covered in the previous 2 episodes as far as how indexing works, sort of indexing 101. But what we're going to do here is talk about different methods of linking, different linking dates, and we'll show you how you can change the allocation of your money so that when you have an annual review, you can change the allocation on the linking dates. Now, the point is this. One of the beauties of indexed universal life insurance is you don't have to read the Wall Street Journal every day. Now, some people may like to do that, but this is so powerful that I can choose to diversify into 5 indices, fall asleep for 10 years and wake up, and I'll probably have a return of 8 to 10% without ever reading the Wall Street Journal or changing my portfolio. It is that powerful. But if you do rebalance, which I'll talk about in the next episode, you can probably tweak your rate of return by 1 or 2 percentage points by rebalancing the portfolio based upon the linking dates. So get ready. We're going to show you how to change the allocation. If you have your copy of the Laser Fund in front of you, if not, pause it for a moment and grab a copy. And let's go to page 65, 66. You'll notice the first few pages here in the chapter. We are explaining the power of indexing and how you don't lose when the market goes down. You make money when the market goes up. Zero is your hero. And my son does a very good job with this particular illustration on page 67. And it's how the insurance company sort of divides up and takes the portion that is required to cover the COI, the cost of the insurance, and the rest of it, they go out and they can allocate that money, and the interest they're earning on that can be linked to an index of your choice. And so it's a very good way to explain if you need to talk to an engineer type of a prospect on how indexing works. What we're going to do is move a little bit further ahead, and we're going to talk about your choice of indices. So this would start on page 69. So on page 69, we give a few examples. Now, many of these insurance companies will offer 5, 10, 15 different indices to choose from. There are the most popular ones, and that's what we're going to highlight here. One of the most common is the S&P 500. Now, S&P stands for the Standard & Poor's 500. And there are our S&P 500 mutual funds, index mutual funds. We're not talking about that. That means your money is in a mutual fund that is made up of stocks in the S&P 500, meaning if the market loses 40%, you'll lose 40%. That's an index mutual fund. We're not talking about that. We're talking about indexing as a strategy. This is a swing, not some club that you're using. And so when you use different indices, you're linking your returns based upon the performance of those indices. So I may allocate 20%. Let's say I have $1 million of cash value in my policy, And this year I feel bullish about America, and I decide to link 20% to the S&P 500. So 200,000 of my million is linked to the S&P. Now I could do the whole million, which I've done many times, but let's say you choose the S&P. In the book, there is a chart of what would have happened had you chosen just the S&P 500 with all of your money, all the million that I'm talking about right now. And it would show you the years historically. See, I like to see historical rates of return. Now, this is what's happening in the insurance industry right now. Whole life insurance hasn't been able to compete. And so they have a pretty strong lobby. And so whole life insurers have collectively gotten together and said, we are going to restrict life insurance illustrations because you have to abide by what is called the NAIC, National Association of Insurance Commissioners, and they dictate what is the highest assumptive rate of return you can illustrate. And they have consistently brought that down, down, down. It's come down to 9 to 8 to 7. Now they're down at 6%. Why? Because whole life can only earn that, and they can't compete. So they are the ones dictating what is the highest rate of return you can illustrate. So, unfortunately, the highest return we illustrate, if we show 6 or 6.5 or 7, you can earn 7 and net 6. And they dictate the highest return you can illustrate. But at the back, you can actually show historical rates of return. Historically, the rates of return on universal life have been much higher. They've been at 8, 9, and 10. And so when we show you the historical rates of return, our clients have actually earned 11, netting 10. They've earned 9, netting 8, even though we're forced to only illustrate to new purchasers of indexed universal life 6.5 or 7. And we still just zing along at those rates of return. So, I'm okay, but if it looks good at 6.5, it will blow the other alternatives out of the water when you show the actual historical rates of return. But you have to sort of show those in charts and illustrate it another way, because the most you can show on an insurance illustration is the rate that is allowed by the NAIC. Pretty sad, right? So in the book, we actually show you the actual S&P performance. Now, another one might be the blended index, and that's where they blend different indices, and you put your money in one, but they are diversifying it between the Dow Jones, the Russell 2000, the S&P 500. You don't have to choose one or the other. You choose a blended strategy, and they allocate your money blended among several indices. Sometimes they say, well, your money will go into these 3, and the top 2 is what will credit you. So we'll wait until the end of a year or 2 years, and what the top 2 did is what will credit you, and we'll throw out the bottom one that didn't perform as well as the other 2. So there's some pretty unique ways to link to an index. And so there's one called the S&P 500 Low Volatility Index. There is the Bloomberg U.S. Dynamic Balance Index. One company used the Barclays U.S. Dynamic Balance Index. That's called the BUDB. So different companies will offer maybe 10 or 15 different indices. Most of the time, our clients like to keep it simple because it's like overkill to put it in 15. Oh, I want my million. Or some people have only $10,000. Well, I want to divide that up in 15 different places. That's overkill. Usually, savvy people, if they have $1 million, at most might diversify in 5 indices, okay? 200,000 in each if they want to link it all. You can leave some of your money just in the general account portfolio, earning 4 or 5% or whatever that rate is. So in those few pages, what we give you in the book is actual historical rates of return based upon these different indices. Now, the value of an advisor who understands these, they meet with their client on an annual basis. We have annual reviews. And sometimes we just sit down and we look at what's going on. We look at what the economy's doing. And if the economy looks like, we had a terrorist attack, we've had this pandemic, people are still sitting at home, the economy is sluggish, well, you may want to just hang tight. You may want to move back over to just the general account portfolio rate if it looks like the market's going to go down, or you just hang in there. But you wait until the end of the linking period. So let's move to the linking period or methods, which actually starts, I think, on page 374. We move over to the actual methods or the crediting method options that you have. Now, having said that, on page 74, there is a thing called an interest credit bonus. So some insurance companies give you a bonus of 0.5% or whatever based upon if you've had your policy so many years or 5 years or whatever, they give you an extra 0.5% bonus or whatever. So sometimes there's bonuses that are credited that come into play. Starting on page 75, we start talking about the crediting methods and the different options you have. The first one on page 75 is the most common. It's called the annual point-to-point. Now, with that one, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I want to link, not January 1st. You go along, and some companies let you link only on the 15th of the month. Other companies say, oh, you can link any day you want. So you go link, like I did in 2011 during that election year. That company only let me link on the 15th of the month. And so November 15th, I said link, because I knew the year following it would be just a week or two after the election. And I knew the economy, if it was going to grow, was going to give me a great rate of return. So I said link, and I went 1 year annual point to point. So when the S&P was up like 20%, then I knew I got credit. Now the cap at that time was 16%. So if I had $1 million of cash value at the beginning of that year, November 15th of 2012, if they capped me at 16, I got $160,000 of credit, tax-free, and I locked in that gain because it was annual point to point. Now, let's say the economy was going to keep going up, or I thought it was, I could stay put. Or if I thought, we're now, this president, the Congress has done some stupid things. I think we're going to head for a little bit of a recession. I may go, let me just go back over to the general account portfolio rate and settle for the 4 or the 5% for the next year. I'm just going to hunker down and play it safe. See, that's what you do on an annual point to point. You cannot change the allocation until the end of the linking period. But once you do that, you can then say, oh, I want to move over to this one or that one, or just settle for the general account portfolio, or just stay put. But these are so powerful, like I said, you could stay put for 10 years and probably come out ahead with an average of 7 to 8%. But by getting together with your advisor every year or so and reallocating, you'd probably tweak your rate of return. That's called rebalancing, which we'll talk about in the next episode. So annual point to point is one. Another one is called the monthly sum. And then we give examples of that on page 76. And this is where sometimes they look at the monthly sum, sometimes they dollar cost average, so that if you were to put in a lump sum of money, they will dollar cost average and only allocate or link 1/12 of your money in January, 1/12 in February, 1/12 in March, 1/12 in April. So you actually have 12 linking dates, and so you dollar cost average. Otherwise, if you said, oh, I want my whole $1 million to link right now, then you would have to wait a year, and you'd have to sort of be hoping that a year from now that the market would be up. Sometimes that's okay. But sometimes if you want a dollar cost average, then you can divide it up and link 1/12 of your money each month to sort of smooth it out. Sometimes there's smoothing periods. Sometimes the smoothing period is the last 6 months of the year. And so there's all kinds of ways to not have heartburn over, golly, I hope when the end of the linking period happens, it can be an up day, because with the topsy-turvy whipsaw markets we've had, one day to the next can be a 10 or 15 point swing. And a 15-point swing could negate a 15% gain. So sometimes you may want to have a smoothing period or a dollar cost average linking method. Now, there's some other periods besides annual point to point. You may choose a 2-year point to point. So what you're saying is, I want to link today, and I will wait 2 years to see what the market did. Now, if you're going to wait 2 years, the cap goes up because you're having to wait 2 years to see. And so they may say, okay, the cap is 20 or 25% or whatever. Another common one, when the market tanks. Many times when the market takes a nosedive, like 30%, 40%, my sons will contact their clients and say, hey, you may want to link to a 5-year strategy. They've done that a few times. 5 years? Yeah, you link and you have to wait 5 years until you see what you're going to make. But some people have come out ahead 60, 70, and 80% because if the market drops down 40% and you link down here and you wait 5 years, the chances that the market will be substantially higher is pretty great. So after a huge market plunge, if you link with a 5-year strategy, in 5 years, the likelihood that you will capture like 60 or 70 or 80%, and sometimes there's no caps on these things, you can have a tremendous credit 5 years down the road. So we're talking about annual point to point, 2-year, 5-year. We're talking about methods where you can do a smoothing period or an annual point to point, or you have a dollar cost averaging, or maybe a trigger. A trigger index means if the market comes up, and as long as the S&P comes up to a certain point, 5, 6, 7%, it triggers. And when they do that, they automatically credit you a given rate. Because if the market is high, sometimes if the market is positive, if the market is just positive, then it triggers, we will pay you the for sure 6.5%. And so sometimes it triggers if the market is up by this much. It triggers and they will credit you for sure 6.5% or whatever. And so there's all kinds of ways to link and choose indices. If you want to keep it simple, just link to an index. There will usually be a cap, but there's a floor. Now, here is one final concept when it comes to linking and using different index strategies. When you diversify and you have some in one strategy, some in another, you're going to average it all out. And if you watch the previous episode, you saw an annual statement of a client that had his money into 5 different indices. Actually, 20% was in the general account portfolio, and that year he got the 4.4%. But in one he earned 15, another 13.65, another 15%. The other one was around 9.5%, but when you averaged all of them together, it was over 10%. That is diversifying in superior vehicles. And so what you do is you change your allocation and you will rebalance. Watch the next episode to really understand what rebalancing is. And when you use these different methods, what you're taking advantage of is the ability to not have to worry about watching the market. This isn't buy, sell. This is just slowly looking at what's going on in the economy and not getting heartburn, having an annual review, staying put, moving around, reallocating, tweaking your returns from maybe 7 to 8% up to 9 to 10%. That's what is achievable by understanding the different linking methods, the indices that you can link to. Now, my sons will teach you one other strategy that is a little bit advanced. And I'm just going to give you a little carrot, a little taste. You understand that with general indexed universal life, if I have $1 million of cash value and the general account portfolio is 5%, that's $50,000. I am giving them authority to use the $50,000 of interest to buy upside options and 0 is my hero. If the market goes down, I don't make anything, but I don't lose. But see, insurance companies say, well, if we just take the interest on the million, 50,000 to buy upside options, but it looks like the economy is going to go up like an election year, there are performance factors, or what are called multipliers. And the insurance company that offers these will say, you know, you can use the interest on your million, but we have to cap you. But if you want, instead of 0 being hero, on your million, if the market were to lose 40%, you won't lose. But what if you capped your loss at 7.5? So the worst you would lose would be 7.5%. Your million would go down 75,000 to 925, when everybody else in America was down to 600,000. Why would you do that? Because now you're authorizing the insurance company to use another $75,000 of your million. If the market crashes, you will lose 7.5%, but not 40%. What does that mean? Now they have 75,000 plus the 50,000 if you were earning 5%. They have $125,000 to buy options, upside options. What does that allow them to do? They can put your cap way up there. There have been people using multipliers that have had gains of up to 55% because they realize, well, I'm going to gamble. I won't lose 40 if the market goes down 40. The most I'll lose is 7.5. But that will give me an upside of up to 40, 50, 60% if the market goes up. How's that? Now, if I just blew you away, forget what I just said. You don't need to know it. But savvy advisors, when they have that option, it may behoove you to know it. Otherwise, your competitor may take your client away from you. Those are called performance factors or multipliers. And a savvy client may appreciate knowing they have that option so that they don't blame you when they only earn 16 and they could have earned 50. So let them. I teach my clients true principles, and then I let them govern themselves. If they say, Doug, what would you do? I'd go, well, you know, I would probably use a multiplier performance factor during this election year and risk at most losing 7.5 to have an upside of 40 or 50%. But if you don't want to lose, you want 0 to be your hero, then 16% or 15 or 12% cap is probably fine, and you're going to come out with an average return of probably 8 to 10%. But people who understand this, they like it because they won't lose 40. The most they'll lose is 7.5. So that's the beauty of indexed universal life. There are so many different options. The more you learn about it in this book, and with advanced video training in this series, these are optional videos that you'll learn that my sons will teach. You will be blown away with what you can do for yourself and also for those clients where you're looking out for their best interest by educating them.